I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good afternoon, evening. This is our May 12th, 2025 Heritage Lake Board of Directors meeting. And we would like to start here today with our announcements. And first up is Clear Creek Conservancy with Dwayne Kelly, but I don't see Dwayne. So, do we have anybody from the Conservancy here? We'll keep moving right on. Next, we have Floyd Township Fire Department with Jeff Brooks, and I believe he's not here either. So that would move to...
I've got his report.
Oh, you do have his
Yeah.
report? Okay, so Kevin's gonna give his report.
For the month of April, they've got 30 dispatch runs. He wanted to report all 4 tornado sirens in the township are confirmed to be working. And also on Memorial Day, the golf cart parade will be on Saturday, May 24th, and they'll leave the station at 11 a.m. That's it.
Great. Now, on to Neighborhood Watch.
No report.
No report.
That's a question. Listen. The Conservancy's here now, if you wanted to have it.
Okay. Do you have a report for the Conservancy?
I don't, but I mean, I'm going to think about it. Basically, things continue to progress. We bought a new mower. You know, that's about it. Nothing major.
Thank you. Then we have HLCS with Rick Miller.
No report.
Hellnack with Donna McGinley.
Always have a report.
Good.
First, I want to thank everybody in the community and the volunteers that we had the garage sale here at the clubhouse last week. It was just so much fun. We had a lot of people from the community that participated, and I think it's just a really nice thing that the community does. I did get asked about getting the maps restored with the locations of the garage sale sites, and I told them I would mention that to the board. A lot of people got lost out here trying to find their way around us to the various garage sales. So if you can consider that for next year, that would be great. But thanks again to everybody that made it such a huge success. We really appreciate it. The next event that we have right now coming up is the Neighborhood Meet and Greet. It's Saturday, May 17th from 7 to 9 at the Activity Center. It's not, there was some misconception that it was just for new residents. It is not. It is for anybody that just wants to come out and meet some new neighbors or people, and it's done in a dating format. So you change seats every 5 or 10 minutes, and then you have time at the end just to stand around and socialize a little bit. And if you're interested, please, I think if you want to contact Nancy Burcham, I think you should either text her or call her. Sometimes emails go into the trash account, and they're just not reliable. Nancy's number is 317-698-5230. The next event we're working on is my favorite, the boat poker run, and that's going to be Saturday, August 16th. And if anybody's interested in being a dock host again, Ken.
That was too much work.
He did a great job last year for us, although he runs every time he sees me coming now, but that's okay. Anyway, Heather Ludlow is doing the dock host, and her number is 317-698-2311. She'd like to have that process completed by June if possible, so if you have any interest in being a dock host, please give Heather a call as soon as you can. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Donna. Now we have kind of a unique, a little bit longer security report that'll start off with Benny Roughton and finish up with the Sheriff's Department. This kind of tags along our discussion we had a few months ago regarding some potential future rules for hunting and target shooting, both archery and firearms. So Benny's gonna start, and then we're gonna have someone from the Sheriff's Department kind of wrap that up, finish that up. What we're not on the agenda today, we're not voting on anything, and we're not passing any rules today. This is just informational for the future.
All right. So target practice has been discussed quite a bit here recently, and just wanted to put into a presentation some numbers and some figures that we found just around Heritage Lake, what the community looks like, a bit of a snapshot. I'll read this all out loud. Granted, I don't like to read slides, but I know this doesn't have the best resolution, so just kind of bear with me some. So one of the things some of the neighbors have said is Heritage Lake is kind of a rural location, right? And they want to be able to hunt or do target practice. And to tell you the truth, I don't think that is the case. Via the Clear Creek sewer connection, we have 1,675 homes within Heritage Lake. 56 of all lots are improved, and that gives us a population density of 667 homes per square mile. That's the same population density roughly as Cloverdale, but it's also 10 times more dense, more dense than the average population density of Putnam County altogether. So yes, you could consider Heritage Lake the whole place in a rural location, but is Heritage Lake rural? Absolutely not. And our homes are relatively close. We have nice third acre size lots, but on average are about 100 feet by 150 feet. Here is a quick guideline of how many homes have been built at Heritage Lake, started back in 1972. All this data comes from Clear Creek Conservancy with the sewer hookups. It comes from annual meeting minutes that we were able to look back at, and also via the highlights. And on Rick Miller's, the website he runs, there's some very good information. Hey, just kind of look on there. It's always very entertaining, but that's where this comes from. There is a bit of a blind spot, and that's this linear piece right here, where I just took a straight average across. Another thing we hear often is, well, I've been here 20 years and it's always been fine to hunt. It's always been fine to target practice. I get it, but if you look, 20, 25 years back, this is the middle of a housing crisis right here. So since then, I mean, we've had nearly 300 homes built within Heritage Lake in the last 20 years that we've been here. And recently, really in the last 10 is where we've seen that uptick. As you can see here, when it comes to archery target practice, I think people find arrows, they think they're safer or something, but they're really not a safe substitute for firearms. I've always heard that arrows, I'll say ballistic energy is very similar to a .22 long rifle, which is kind of a small cartridge, definitely when it comes to firearms. The muzzle energy, so coming right off the arrow right out of the barrel is 130 foot-pounds, and at 100 yards, that's what this column here is 90. So I made a couple common rounds that you might see. There's tons and tons of firearm rounds, right, that could be used for many different things, but these are some that I thought might be most common people understand. So .22 long rifle is 130 pounds and 80 foot-pounds. A 9mm handgun cartridge, about 300 foot-pounds and 200 foot-pounds at 100 yard. And .223, that's a very common round. Often people hear stuff in the news of an AR-15 or something like that. That's a very popular sporting round. And it's significant, right? It's almost 10 times the amount of muzzle energy and right off the muzzle, then also at 100 yards. Here's the thing though, .22 long rifle, 9mm, and .223, not a single one of these is legal to hunt deer with, right? So when people think, oh, an arrow, this is a safe alternative, it's not gonna be, it may be less lethal or anything along those lines, it's really not. It could still be a very, very deadly projectile. I don't think the resolution's great on this one up here, but just to give everybody an idea. So again, remember 90 foot-pounds at 100 yards for an arrow. Bow and arrows can vary in terms of how much draw weight they have and how heavy the arrow is. But on a good average, this can give you an idea. This is around 50 pounds of draw, which a lot of archers use. Anyways, The kinetic energy for small game, a rabbit or a groundhog, is less than 25 foot-pounds. Medium game, so they're saying deer and antelope, is 25 to 41 foot-pounds. Large game, elk, black bear, or wild boar, is 42 to 65 foot-pounds. And the toughest game, Cape buffalo, got a lot of those around, grizzly and muskox, is around 65 or more foot-pounds of energy. Remember, an arrow has, or can easily have, 90 foot-pounds at 100 yards. The next few slides are going to be just examples of targets that our residents are shooting at and their backstops. So I took a day, drove around Heritage Lake just to see what type of targets people are shooting at, where they're located, and what they're using as a backstop to prevent arrows from traveling further beyond. So what we have is on the left side of this photo, you can see there's a deer silhouette as the target. And on the right is an overhead picture. And what I tried to do best was, we have a red arrow, and the lot that the target is on is highlighted. At the head of the arrow, that is where the target is at. And at the tail of the arrow is, the best of my ability, where people are shooting from, where they're staying, where they're shooting. I'm just basing that off of a perpendicular target. Let's say 30 yards or so. So in this first example, you can see, hey, here's the home they're shooting from. They're shooting, there's a little bit of woods, not much, if anything, for a backstop, and directly behind it is a home. I documented, took a photo of every target I could see from my car when I drove every single road of Heritage Lake. So there could be stuff in the backyard that's fenced that I don't see. There could be other things, but this is every one that I could personally locate. Here's one, first glance, really nice large backstop that appears to be 8 foot by 8 foot. What's directly behind it is a home. You can see here where it's being shot from, crosses Heritage Drive, right into a home. Another example, shooting, no backstop, again, distance in a home. One thing I also, when I was putting this together, it really hit home was, almost all of these, the targets are at the edge of their property, exiting their property. And the lot size, right? I mean, that's how it's going to have to be set up for the most part. Conversely, or you could stand at the edge of the property and shoot at your own home. Oddly enough, not many people do that, right? So here's another one. You can see behind it, an RV, a car, a home. Here's one, just butts up to an adjacent field. Another one, this is a steep valley, so it has a couple bales of hay or some foam board, a valley, some water, more homes, a few empty lots and homes. Empty lots, I don't think, are a good substitute as a backstop, right? I mean, Heritage Lake has been around for a while. We do have some mature trees, but a lot of empty lots are just brush, right? And the tree's no bigger than a foot, so there's still a lot of empty space for an arrow to travel. And truthfully, I don't know, if I was having a neighbor shoot an arrow, I'd rather be able to see them than having a brush lot between us, because then I can at least go in or tell my kids to go in. It's a lot of the same thing, right? Here's one, this has a larger tree. It's on the ground, but it's aimed right at neighbors' homes and into the yard, into the street, some empty lots. A empty lot. Here's one that's somebody they shoot to their own house. So I thought, depending on how you look at it, so here it is behind a fence. You can say it's either the most safe or the least safe, I guess. Here's one. Also, since this photo's been taken, this lot has been cleared and a home is being built on it. Here's one. There is a dirt pile roughly behind it. That dirt pile was installed by the property owner of these lots themselves, not the actual archer. This one, actually, I mean, they don't own this property right here, but they are shooting down and this is a hill. So I would say this one is knocking on the door of being safe. And then finally, this is just a cumulation of everything overall in a slide deck, kind of revolving. So, can you hit those lights, sir? Thank you. Can you pull that up? If it will work. I get another thing is, I hunt, I do target practice off of Heritage Lake. We all like to fancy ourselves as like a good aim, a good shot. It's fun, you get a group of guys together, it always either devolves or evolves, I guess how you think about it, into who's got the tightest pattern, who's doing the best shooting. That's just if people are into firearms or archery and things like that. But I think it's really important to notice that it doesn't take much to be off your aim. And barring any equipment failures or anything like that, let's say you're shooting 30 yards with archery equipment, or any equipment to tell you the truth. 30 yards is roughly from this whiteboard to that wall behind us. This is a 5-degree angle. It's 1 foot long and it's 1 inch. At 30 yards, that 1 inch turns into 10 feet. So this blue piece of tape right here, if you guys can see it, 1 inch of deviation on aim at 30 yards turns into that spread back there. That is 10 feet between those two blue pieces of paper, right? That is turning your head, coughing, a spasm, anything like that. I get it, guys. Archery can be very fun. You think of it as being safe, but there's a lot of room for accidents, and that's my take on it. I try to put as much information and raw numbers to it, so it wasn't just like a personal opinion, but that is what I have to present to the board and to the community as what we should take into consideration if we're looking to change the rules, bar hunting, or whatever we might need to do. I wanted to look at some of the facts. Thanks.
Thank you.
I'm expecting an applause.
Now, as far as where this whole situation is with the community, we aren't like I said, we aren't voting on anything today, but this isn't something that's totally dead in the water as far as potential rules. We're just in a discussion phase. I think we all need to gather information and figure out what the best course of action, what the best language would be, and how, if that's something we as a board would want to implement to either prohibit hunting, prohibit firearms, prohibit archery, target shooting. That's all up in the air for discussion. But what there currently is in place is we do have different state laws that could address some of these situations. And we do have a representative from the Sheriff's Department, and that's Deputy Chief Tom Sutherland, who's here to discuss some of the other implications or some of the concerns that we have regarding shooting firearms in the community and archery, target practice potentially. But he's here to address some of that with everyone, with the community and anybody who's here today. So thank you, Tom.
You're welcome. I'm gonna come up here if that's okay, because I don't like talking with my back to people. So my first talking points are very similar to what Benny was just talking about. He had sent me some photographs and said, here, this is what we're gonna be discussing. So being a police officer for 35 years, being a hunter ed instructor for 35 years here in our community and in our county, Patrick Labhart, who's here with DNR, we teach our hunter ed classes twice a year here in Putnam County. So things that I came up with to start out the discussion is very similar to what Benny was talking about. In what direction are they shooting in correlation with property and the neighbor's property? And as Benny has proven, it looks like to me, most people are putting the target at the end of their property, which therefore, where is that arrow going if it's missing, right? Well, so they gotta know what direction that arrow is gonna travel. It could hit the top of the target and ricochet up. It could hit below the target and still ricochet. So they've got to, the people who are going to shoot, they've got to keep that in mind, is what direction the arrow is going to travel if they do miss the target. Is there adequate backstop to prevent that arrow from leaving your property? As Benny has shown us, there's a lot of pictures up there that I would say the answer to that question is no. There's not a lot of backstops that's going to prevent that arrow from leaving their property if they miss that target. And then the other, which will lead into the next point of conversation, is there a potential risk to property, people, or pets in the direction of shooting? And I know one of the things that Alyssa asked me to speak upon, and I met with our prosecutor, Austin Malaire, and we're all three on the same boat, that our criminal recklessness law reads like this. And I just copied and pasted it off this Indiana IC code. But it says a person who recklessly, knowingly, or intentionally. So you only have to prove one of those three, not all three. Either recklessly, knowingly, or intentionally performs an act that creates a substantial risk of bodily injury to another person, commits criminal recklessness, except as provided subsection B, criminal recklessness is a class B misdemeanor. So they could be arrested and taken to jail if you could prove the case. However, the offense of criminal recklessness is defined in subsection A as a level 6 felony if it's committed while armed with a deadly weapon. Well, if people are using archery equipment to harvest animals, it's a deadly weapon. Right?
Right.
They're taking it deer hunting, taking it turkey hunting. If it can actually successfully harvest that animal, then it could hurt any of us that's in this room and take our life, depending on where it hits us. So those are the things that I think the people who are going to shoot, once you make your rules, those are the things that these people need to take in consideration. One, the 4 safety things that I talked about: in what direction is their property when they're shooting, where that arrow goes if they miss their target, is there a backstop adequate? And I'm not going to give an opinion on a backstop. You can do a lot of Google research, but I would say the backstop's got to be big enough to stop the arrow if you miss your target, right? And then just some safety rules in general that I'll close with. Only point that bow and arrow in a safe direction. Always be sure to target, and this is a big one. This is what we talk about when we go to the range and teach our deputies and our reserves in firearms training. Rule number 4 that we always talk about: always be sure of your target, what's in front of it, immediately behind it, and what's beyond it. Because when I squeeze that trigger on that gun, or I let that arrow go, my name is on that bullet, my name is on that arrow until it stops. And I am responsible. We teach that in our underage classes when we are teaching these young children and adults about safety in underage classes. When you pull that trigger, your name is on that bullet. You are responsible. And if it ends up hurting someone, and we can go back to this criminal recklessness law, you potentially could be charged. And then the last point: only shoot when you have a safe range or shooting area and a safe backstop or a background. Is there any questions for me or anything else you would like for me to cover?
I have a question, and it could be either to you or perhaps to Austin. So do you have to hurt someone to get charged under criminal recklessness?
I don't believe so, because it says, not to step on your toes, counselor, but it says creates a substantial risk of bodily injury. So if I'm shooting and I have my archery target in my backyard, and let's just say the next door neighbor's kids are playing in the backyard, to me that's creating a substantial risk. Because if I can't control where that arrow goes, and I miss my target, or it ricochets and goes towards the kids or people on their property, and they have a right to be on their property, right? Of course. I can't tell them it's my turn to shoot, you gotta go in your house. I can't do that. I'm on my property, they're on their property. If I miss, I'm creating a substantial risk. Doesn't say I have to hit them. Am I correct, sir?
Absolutely.
What if nobody else is present, but it perhaps goes in somebody's yard or hits somebody's house?
Well, I mean, if you're creating damage to their property, and the other thing you gotta remember, and it goes back to the old hunting rules, if I harvest an animal and it leaves my property and goes to the next door neighbor's property, I have to get permission from them to go get that animal. I can't just step across the property. If my arrow is landed and in your backyard, you're probably not gonna be happy with me for one, and two, you're probably not gonna let me come and get it. Because I gotta get your permission to come and get it.
So that leads me to another question. Perhaps somebody was hunting and they harvested a deer that crossed over multiple properties. What are some concerns there?
Well, they would have to get permission from each property owner that they've got to cross.
And if
To
they
get that
don't?
Then they could be charged with criminal trespass.
We
And
don't, okay, go
And
ahead.
they think as police officers, well, I'm gonna call the police and they're gonna go, take me over there and they're gonna get it. That person has no more right to give me permission to be on their property to get that animal than giving that person the right. If it comes on your property and you're 99 or 100% against hunting and you wanna see all animals live, you're probably not gonna let me come and get it. And there's nothing that a police officer can do about that.
I know traditionally we don't let the audience ask any questions at this point unless we're in the open forum, but since you're here as a special presenter, does the audience have any questions for him today regarding this situation? Is there anybody who has any other concerns over this topic that we wouldn't traditionally talk about right now?
Do you know of any incidents in the area that have happened?
I'm not aware of any reported to us.
So it's been several years ago, Ken was there.
Say your name just so he knows who you are.
Patrick Ladbar, Conservation Officer. I think Ken actually called me, there was an individual on the lake, walked out his front door basically and shot a nice buck standing in his neighbor's front yard with a muzzleloader, and he was charged with the felony criminal recklessness with a firearm.
And that was charged by our prosecutor's office here, right, Austin?
Correct.
And that was what was it, a level 6 felony? Yeah.
How long ago was that? I'm sorry.
It's probably 5 years at least.
That's what I was on the kids.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Sure, we have a few.
Do we currently have any rules regarding target shooting or hunting
No.
in Heritage Lake?
Well, hunting on common properties is not, yeah, target practice and hunting on common property is not allowed. On private property, there is no ruling. So within your own lot, there's no say currently.
This might be to protect me. So somebody's shooting an arrow, they're out there, and my kids are out there playing. And you're saying that's endangerment.
Could be.
So I can go in there and grab my pistol and say, hey.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Let's not do that.
Two wrongs don't make a right. sir.
Exactly.
You're protecting your.
I understand that. I understand that.
Protect your life and your property. I'm asking.
I understand that. What I would ask you to do is calmly ask them to stop, and if they don't stop, then that's when you pick up the phone, dial 911, and you get law enforcement there. And let them deal with it.
I understand it, but is it against the law to grab the pistol?
If you aim it.
To grab it?
Yeah, you grab it and go out there, you know, hey, they're shooting arrows, your kid got their plane, you go in there, grab your pistol,
I guess it depends on what you do with your pistol. If you have it in your holster like I do, and you're standing there talking to the person, you've not committed any crime. If you take that pistol and you point it at them, you've committed a crime.
and, yeah, I understand that part, I just getting it right here.
I don't know about towing the line there.
No, it's getting close.
I guess I have a similar question is, well, pump the brakes. Say I'm inside of my home and somebody is target practicing and I want to go outside and they're kind of aimed towards the yard. I guess what would you suggest then if I've spoken with them and they don't want to stop?
911.
So you feel like they're doing it in a dangerous way?
Right, yes, say, yeah, there's no backstop or similar.
If you feel
a
like
tree.
that they are doing it, I guess my professional opinion would be if you feel like they're doing it in a dangerous way that could potentially create substantial risk to you or your family, and they won't listen to you, then that's when you pick up the phone and you ask for law enforcement to come out and address it.
All right, well, thank you.
Is there any agency or certificate of compliance with how to set up a proper backstop? Is there any, does DNR come out and will they inspect these these backyards and,
No.
why not? Would you like to?
It's probably pretty busy.
Liability to them.
That's true.
The only recommendation what I would say is, if you wanna know, is kind of do like I did, do some Google research and look up different archery, professional archery organizations that are out there, and they kind of give recommendations on how big to build it and how far to, put it behind your target and what have you, that it would stop the arrow, if people are target shooting with arrows. That's the only recommendation I have for you.
Would the board ever consider, or the community as a whole, is it possible to set up some sort of an archery club?
That's what I was.
With the.
So that was something that we had discussed and looked into, but it's a very, the liability insurance is very high. And then the more we looked into that, as far as your homeowner's insurance, a lot of times if you tell your homeowner's insurance that you have even just a target in your backyard, they may not cover you. So there's a lot of concerns with insurance.
To that point, I spoke with our insurance agent, and the way he described it to me, the insurance to have the POA create and sanction a practice area would be Lloyd's of London style expensive, was the way he put it.
Yeah, because you guys are taking on that liability, then
Yeah.
somebody gets hurt.
So that also speaks to the risk of homeowners when they get.
I called mine and asked them, and they told me they would drop me immediately if I did a target practice in my backyard
For archery and
So-
firearms, both?
for archery.
So is there any thought of us making a rule that we don't have target practice or
Yes.
anything in the whole?
There is, that's why we're here. We're information gathering, and we've already been in discussions over that for a few months.
Like I say, I'm just asking, I don't archery or none of that anymore, I quit, so I'm just asking. But here's the problem you're gonna have, or I see you might have, is you come out and you enforce law, not HOA rules.
Right.
So if you, just one cop could come out, another cop could come out and say, man, they got a big backstop, it's perfectly okay, because there's really no law or nothing, so that's what I'm trying to get at, which I don't do neither one, so I ain't worried about it no more. But you're out here to enforce law, not our HOA rules.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not gonna enforce your or POA or whatever you
Yeah.
guys call yourself. We're not gonna enforce your rules.
Yeah.
We're strictly out here, if there's a criminal violation going on, we're gonna investigate.
Right, yeah, okay, all right, okay.
Great, well, I
Any
appreciate
other
it.
questions?
This is important. I grew up out here, and it's like, my brother hunts, he hunted when he was a kid. We never hunted at Harris Lake. It was rural back then. It was just, we knew it was a subdivision, and you couldn't cut, if you couldn't hunt on common property, which is a lot of area, why would you hunt in a 1/3 acre lot? This kind of made sense.
You can't hunt in city limits either, anywhere.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, then we are on to the Sheriff's Department Security Report.
I'll just stand up with this, okay?
Sounds great, you're there.
I'm here, right? So we were up here 46 different times. 11 of those 46 were for traffic stops. We responded to 35 calls of service, and most of them was administrative. We were up here 9 different times for administrative, and that's your title checks and different things like that that people are getting done on their properties, their boats, vehicles, and stuff like that.
Great, we appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You have a great night. I don't know if you're staying or coming.
I'd be happy to go home with my family. if that's
You are
okay.
more than welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we're on to the presentation of agenda. I would ask for a motion to approve.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second. Okay. All in favor? Anyone opposed? No? Okay. That is approved. And then on to the presentation of minutes with the April 14th board meeting.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor? Anyone opposed? No. Passes. Then April 28th operation meeting, all in favor? Or do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? And on to the treasurer's report with AJ.
Here we go. Treasurer's report for the month of April.
Total income for the month is $202,549. Total expenses for the month were $233,044. Leads to a net income, a net loss of income, or $30,495. Important to note, for April, we did pay about $75,000 in siltation costs and lake treatments to make sure to get our discount by paying early, right? Yeah. Year-to-date total revenue is $602,677. Total expenses year-to-date are $604,813, which leaves us total year-to-date of a loss of $2,137, which is also typical this time of year because we're putting out big expenditures for lake treatments and things like that. So that's nothing out of the ordinary from our normal year-to-date over the last handful of years. For the end of April, our short-term cash position is $623,820. Our total investments with CDs and money markets, $92,320, which leaves total cash available, $716,140. Respectfully submitted.
Great, thank you. Is that it?
Mm-hmm.
On to the board committee reports, the A&E committee with Linda.
Thank you. March report, we had 5 houses, 2 decks with roofs, 2 docks, a roof with a deck with a roof, an outdoor kitchen, 2 docks with permanent covered boat lifts, 2 non-waterfront fences, and 2 decks. April, we had 3 boat lifts, 1 revision for approved dock, 2 docks, 1 house, 1 dock with a covered patio, 3 non-waterfront fences, chain link, and 3 shadow box fences.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Campground with Rick Stevens.
Next meeting is Saturday, May the 17th at 10 a.m.
How was the band this week?
It was a good crowd down there this weekend. Very good.
Good weather.
Good weather, yeah, we had perfect weather for it, so, but no, it was nice and calm and entertaining.
Cleanup committee with Nina Stebbins.
Okay, so the cleanup committee hosted their biannual Tops and Clean Sweep on Saturday, and we had 123 residents show up with their items to deposit. We had more than 12 volunteers, including Benny. We were very happy to see him there. We filled up 4 full dumpsters and probably could have filled a 5th because at 12:15 the event was to run till 1. At 12:15 we filled up the 4th dumpster. Also, we'd like to thank Charlie Land. He provided his dump truck and semi-trailer and collected all of the scrap metal. And I have never seen so much scrap metal in my life. It was the largest collection of scrap metal I have ever seen. I do want to thank Sarah Lochner. She is the chairman of the cleanup committee, but we need more members on the cleanup committee. This is a service provided to the community. We had people bring in whole entire decks that they pulled up, and we were able to deposit that wood into one of the dumpsters for them. Probably saved that homeowner $450 easily. We asked for nothing but donations for this, and all of the manpower this time was provided by residents. It was all volunteer residents. So with that being said, we absolutely need more volunteers for the cleanup committee. Not just to volunteer for this event to do the heavy lifting, but also just the coordination of the event and to ensure that the cleanup committee is a committee that continues to function. The members of the committee at this point are all of the retirement age, and as such, they should be allowed to retire. And basically, we need some younger people to come in and help out with this committee. Another thing I wanted to talk about was we did get feedback at the event. A couple people mentioned something like, I know the yard sale was last weekend, but I thought I would go ahead and wait until this weekend to donate this. I do want to clear up that this is a clean sweep. There is no donation aspect. If anything, it's costing the cleanup committee money to dispose of this stuff. So if you're saving your yard sale items, with the mindset that you're going to donate them to the cleanup committee the following weekend, I highly recommend you not do that and instead donate it the weekend of the yard sales to the clubhouse, to Hellneck, so that your donation can actually be used. Because we threw away a lot of good stuff that these people just thought they were donating. They didn't completely understand. Our next event is the Shred event in August. I'll give you plenty of notice before that. And then also note that the Talks Drop part of this event ends at 11 a.m. So when the next event comes along, remember that we had a lot of people show up after 11 that had toxins to deposit and we could not collect them. So thank you to all the volunteers and the community for participating.
Thank you, Nina. Now the Lake Committee with Mike.
Well, I'm reading off minutes because I accidentally missed the last meeting, but as I scroll through, still need more donors for the Feast and Ski, or Ski and Fun, as well as silent auction items. Budget for the Lake Committee is pretty solid at $37,708.17. There was a vote to increase the merchandise spending limit. It was $750 that approved to $2,500, simply because most orders you get a better deal at, or it's got to be a $2,000 minimum. So we voted to expand that to $2,500 from $750. And then somebody from Pickleball Club requested some screens around the outer fences of the tennis courts. And that's going to cost between $800 and $1,000.
What's that for?
I guess for loose balls, maybe going under the
Wind.
and the wind. Yeah. So that was kind of what they talked about there. I think, and that's about all I have from minutes.
Thank you.
Sure.
It gets hot and they'll want it down.
Then we have long-term planning, and Rick Olson is not here, so I think Jeff had a few things.
Okay, the long-term planning committee meets on Wednesday, third Wednesdays of the month at 7 here in this building. So next Wednesday is going to be the third Wednesday, the 21st. So that works out that way. Every once in a while that happens. We're in the second Monday here, but the third Wednesday's next time. So it meets at 7. 12 members on the committee. They're working right now, revamping and reviewing and trying to restructure the mission statement and objectives so that it'll fit all 12 members' view of forward thinking as we go forward. And they have a long list of items to review and discuss, which we'll bring that forward after that meeting and share that with the board. So it's cooking along pretty good. And they all get along good, so that's really neat. That's all I have.
Thank you. And then Siltation with Chris Schubert.
Yep, Siltation met, we got our bill, like AJ said, from the fall work and the spring work, so we have about $12,000 to spend this year on the remaining siltation projects, which so far there's none really identified, so we're probably gonna do the bulk of our work next year, but if there's anything immediate coming up, we still have some money to spend, so that's it.
Appreciate it. We have no report with the election committee, so on to the manager's report with Ken Roselle.
All right, just a reminder that the lake treatment dates are posted on our website at HLPOA.us. Tomorrow is our regular scheduled treatment date, and we'll continue every 2 weeks after that date. Also, the pool is ready to go. Water samples go in tomorrow. We are scheduled to open for the season on Friday before Memorial Weekend on 5/23. All passes for the pool can be purchased at the pool. This next lengthy topic was discussed at the operations meeting, so I'm sharing it with the public here. This is a problem we're having at the restaurant. The health department has recently expressed concern for the lack of food prep area in the restaurant, and it's based off the amount of business that they do. They basically have two choices to fix this: either create more space or drastically reduce their menu. The first thing I did was meet with the contractor who built the building. I explained to him what the problem was, and he advised me to discuss this with Andy Hines, as a resident out here, which he is the designer of the current building. Then next, I contacted the health department to discuss their concern. I was told there had been given no timetable to rectify this, but it was up to Ed Song to come up with a resolution. The health department, all they ask is for us to keep them informed of what our plan is. I then met with the designer, Andy Hines. He is working with a local contractor at this time to work on a design, permit cost, along with the estimate on a cost for the prep area for the addition, which would be on the back side of the restaurant. The health department did not have any requirements for water or a floor drain, but this is something Benny and I talked about that we may go ahead and have added for any future use. The name of the local contractor that has expressed interest is the Aspire Group. They are interested in this project and will be working to put the cost and plan together that will be presented to the board of directors. If approved, I recommended that it not be started until after Labor Day. And Aspire Group said that it would be within a two-month window. So with that being said, I'll just keep everybody up to date on where this stands and where it goes. Anybody have any questions on that?
Just for clarification, this is not necessarily a bad problem.
It is not. In my next paragraph, last year they've paid us over $80,000 the last 3 years. Last year was almost $86,000. So he is doing quite the volume. I don't think anybody would like to see the menu drastically reduced. I don't think we brought them out here for hamburgers and hot dogs and pizza.
And then also, this potential addition is actually gonna improve the look of the backside of the building.
Yes, and that was one of the things we discussed was the backside of that building is, it's kind of a park, beach. We're gonna kind of dress it up with some windows. We're also gonna create some storage units, so anything, kegs and stuff like that they typically are setting out there, you will not see anymore. They will be behind a fence, so.
And then I also have had some conversations with some homeowners that are on that side, and they're all very excited about this potential
Oh, good.
proposition due to storage and just an improvement of that, the look of the back.
I hesitate to, because as soon as I bring this up, I'll get shot. But I just ask them what kind of rough ballpark figure we are looking at for the size that they are requesting, kind of a shell, concrete floor, prep area, and they were looking at about $40,000. So that's kind of where we're at. Andy Hines is being a resident out here and being the designer of it. He's doing a lot of legwork for us. There's a lot of state permits and stuff like that needs to get involved. So anyway, that's where it's at. As we get the information, and I'll continue to share. And if at one time, if it's approved, the fall is a great time frame for the Aspire Group to do, because they've got things scheduled that they said it'd be a perfect time for them.
And that's a local guy too, local contractor.
Yes, yeah, lives in Patriots Landing or Gettysburg area, right there at the break.
They donated the labor for the event center.
Yeah, they did. Two great guys. I would assure you would do a good job. And finally, the Psalms lease payment for April came in at $6,707. Through 4 months, year-to-date income, we've collected $18,173. Prior year, this time, we collected 17,240, which is a gain of $933 increase. And again, for the entire year of 2024, income paid to the POA was $85,732.
Great.
That's all I have.
Now on to the assistant manager's report with Benny Roughton.
All right, so going down and looking at some of the violations, property violations that were addressed and rectified in April. It was kind of a hot month, I'll say. A lot of building, a lot of changes for people's homes and whatnot. We had roughly 22 violations that were sent out. But at the same time, we had 16 that were resolved, which is fantastic. And these things can be from big items to smaller things. I definitely don't try to nitpick or whatnot. I'd say one of the easier ones, there's a stack of pallets outside of someone's home. But what we're seeing a lot is a bunch of equipment or just household items piled on the side of the garage, just leaning up against the garage, things along those lines. Maybe some broken shutters or broken outdoor visible things, fencing, things along those lines. A question came up that somebody asked this past month that I thought would be really good to talk about. They said, when someone is sent to an attorney and they pay the fee and everything, what do we do with that money? And I'm like, well, this is actually a great opportunity to talk to people about it because it's not a profit. We don't police for profit at all. So the typical chain of or the events is, say Jeff Blades has 13 vehicles broken down in his driveway, and they're just horrible looking. He doesn't, as an example. I would notify Jeff, shoot him a letter just saying, hey, happen to notice you got a lot going on here. And try to give an appropriate amount of time for someone to respond and also rectify the problem, right? So, hey, I realize this could be a lot of work to have these removed, or they might have different types of values and whatnot. So it's a lot of vehicles. Let's go with a month. Reach out to me if there's any issue with that. And I'll put a date on it. If I hear nothing from Jeff at all, when I circle back around after that month, then usually, right, I'm not out there, I'm not chomping at the bit waiting for that month date. It's usually a week after that even. Go back around and see, well, Jeff hasn't reached out to me and there's been zero progress. So I'll send him another letter that says, hey, nothing's happened, you've not reached out, and this is the final notice that you'll get from the POA. I'll give you another month to reach out to me or to rectify the problem. And if you don't, it will go to our attorney at that point. And that's that. So we get a lot of people that either just rectify and they never say anything, or a lot of people that reach out and say, hey, whoa, yeah, that sounds fine. Can we do this? Can I have some extra time? And here's a reason why I don't live. A lot of things that happened was like, I'm a snowbird. We saw all those canvas sheds over the winter and whatnot, and they're like, I'm not going to be back up until May. Okay, that's fine. That's a real legitimate reason. Let's work from there. But once it goes to the attorney, it does basically instantly incur attorney fees. And the POA pays these as they're incurred. And so what happens is once Jeff does nothing and the fees and line up and he's like, oh, I want to get my boat out on the water, I have to pay these fees in order to do so. He pays those fees, it's completely reimbursed back to our attorneys. This is not a profit center. It is a dollar for dollar back to the attorneys. But I thought it'd be a good point just to bring that to everybody's attention. It is not policing for profit at all. And that's it for me.
Great, thank you. Now we are on to old business A, which is the covenant ballot report. As most of you know, we had our election last Monday, or our vote last Monday on the proposed covenant changes. And basically, I don't have hard, fast numbers right now because we're still in the verification process, but the results of the vote won't change. We had approximately 1,200 people vote. And the result was that the majority of people, I think our number was in the high 600s, voted no, and then in the mid 500s were yes. So essentially the result of the vote would be that we would present to the judge that the package of all the proposed changes did not pass, or the majority of the voting constituents said no. So that kind of reels us back a little bit. We're not totally at the end of the road as far as proposing changes to the voting structure, but what we are doing now is taking in consideration the majority of the voters in deciding how to move forward. So as a board and as the president, I have kind of processed this, and I think what the best way forward as far as at this point would be to ask for a more minimal change to the voting structure. I know generally as a community, everybody's on board with the idea that the quorum, I say everybody, a majority of the people are on board with the idea that the quorum is too low. I think the majority of the people are on board with the idea that electronic voting or making sure we have a means to do that is the financially responsible thing for the board to do. So those are two things that I am fairly confident I could go to most individuals and they would agree with that. I think the problem with what we presented to the community was it was a package of different changes that were just too many all at once. So we couldn't kind of parse out what some people agreed with on some and what others didn't agree, and it was just really hard to come to a consensus on that. So since we couldn't vote on each thing individually, anybody who was not on board with it or had questions or didn't agree with certain elements of it would vote no. And I'm here to say to the community, I hear you, I understand, and we're not here to say, hey, we're just gonna ignore what everybody does or what everybody wants and throw it away and ask for some willy-nilly ruling by the judge to just agree with us to agree with us. That's not what we're here as a board to do. I'm here to listen to what the majority of the community wants, evaluate it, and come up with a good resolution that also considers the board members' opinions and considers the good and necessary changes that could potentially arise in the community. I think everybody realizes, based upon this vote right now, our quorum is still way too low. We're at an impasse, we can't do anything with a vote. We press this vote again and we have 1,200, and that's not enough. So based on that, the judge still has the ability to make decisions regardless of what the result of the vote is. But we're here to take the community in consideration and ask for something that's within reason that the community as a whole will generally get behind, but that also the board thinks is in everyone's best interests. So that's two things. First, that's a quorum, the quorum requirement, and making sure that we have a clear path for electronic voting. I think to ignore those two things would be irresponsible as a board. That'd be irresponsible for me to ignore, it'd be irresponsible as us as a board to ignore. We can't get a vote for anything. So it is my request, and I think everybody here has been on board with it, and I had a discussion with the attorney, that we are going to file our response with the results of the vote, telling the judge that as a whole, this is essentially failed, but then parse it down to those two important factors of the quorum requirements and making sure there's a path for electronic voting. There's nothing in the covenants right now that says we can't do electronic voting, but we want to make sure there's a clear path that we can utilize that. I'm a fiduciary for this community. To not have electronic voting and to require mail-in voting is a failure. It's so expensive, and it's ridiculous to have all of these votes done by US mail. It's time consuming, recording it, there's a lot of errors, there's a lot of human error that would be potentially present. There's also a lot of just time consuming, the nature of it's time consuming and the expense. So I'm gonna ask that the court allow us to implement electronic voting for any covenant changes, and then also ask the court for a reasonable quorum requirement to be lowered. What that does not do, what I'm not gonna do, is ask for the voting structure to change. Okay, I think the majority of the individuals said no. That's what the majority said in our vote. So I'm not going to ask for that. And the other changes are also not something I'm gonna ask for, or we as a board are gonna ask for. We're just gonna ask for that lowered quorum requirement. I'm not sure what number that is right now, but obviously 1,200 was pretty high. We got 1,200 people to vote, and I don't think at any election where there's a lot of disinterested people, we're gonna even get 1,200. So it's gonna be a number less than that. I'm gonna have a discussion about it. I think we all, as a board, need to come to a consensus on what that number is, and then electronic voting. As far as the other factors or the other things that we were voting on, that's something for the future. If the judge lowers this quorum, that will bring to the community for a vote. So I wanna say I hear you. I understand that you don't, as a community, the majority did not want those changes in the structure of the voting. And I understand that, and I'm not here to kind of buck the system and say, hey, we're gonna do that anyway. But I think the quorum and electronic voting is the responsible thing to do as a board, and it assures that we have a path forward for a fair and equitable voting process for all the residents, which I think is first and foremost. Because I'd like everybody to recognize we're not here to raise your assessments. That wasn't the intention ever. We wanted a fair and equitable voting process. So we're gonna parse that way down to bare bones. And that's what we're gonna ask for, a reduced quorum and a means to make sure that we can have electronic voting in the future. So that's where we are with that. And when that motion or when that response is filed with the court, we will let everybody know. But those are the two things that we're gonna ask for. On to new business A with the 78 Gettysburg variance. Linda?
The Zellers, they submitted a permit application to remove a corner of an existing dock and place a shore master lift in. The width of the cove was 85 feet, but the lift of the dock would extend into the water at 14.5 feet. The application was denied based on the rule of 407.3. The boat lift may extend over the water no more than 10% of the width of the cove on which it is located. In this case, it would be 8.5 feet. So therefore, it'd be 6 feet more than what they're allowed. The way that their dock is right now, if they leave it and they put a boat in or a pontoon, it would take up more room. By them removing so many feet of their dock, and allowing for the shore master to fit in there, so currently only asking for 6 feet. They have letters from the neighbors stating that they were okay with them doing it that way if it was voted on and allowed by the board. So the request is basically extend 6 feet beyond 10% of the cove width. The proposed boat lift would extend approximately 8.5 from the edge of the wider portion of the existing dock, as shown on the drawing, based on the 85 feet into 10% of the cove width. The 6-foot wall to the edge of the dock plus 8.5 to the edge of the lift equals 14.5, as I previously stated. So they're trying to help by just removing their dock and giving more space and taking up less feet by just putting a boat in there.
Okay, so essentially by granting this and allowing them to build this, we're making the cove width, the usable cove width wider?
Yes.
So if we do not vote to pass this and they just put a pontoon there, they're allowed to do that, right?
Correct.
But that would take up more room.
Absolutely.
Than by permitting this variance.
Yes.
Which then cuts into the shoreline. So that's essentially what we're doing, is we're giving the cove more room?
Yes, we are.
Vote
Yes.
in favor, okay. Anyone have any discussion? Do you have a motion?
I move that we accept the variances
So, second? All in favor? Anyone opposed? Passes. So that'll be put on for a second. Old business, okay. On to new business B, A&E rule modification. It says Rule 407, paragraph 13 with Linda.
So the current rule states, no permanent type boat lift shall be located nearer than 10% of the width of the property on which such building is placed from any sideline. We would like to propose a new rule to say, any roof supports for permanent covered boat lifts and covered boat slips must be at least 8 feet from the property line and remain 8 feet from the projected property line as it extends into the water. No part of the elevated structure can be closer than 6 feet from the property line and must remain 6 feet from the projected property line as it extends into the water.
Is this just for clarity?
Yes, it's just for, to hopefully understand easier than the 10% of a guess.
Okay, my question is, does it then exclude boat lifts that do not have a cover?
No.
Because we're changing it from no boat lift to any roof supports or permanent covered boat lift and covered boat slips.
We can add that in there, just to write one without.
Okay, do you understand where I'm going
Yes,
with
I do.
that? It sounds like we said you don't have a rule on. boat
Basically, it
lifts,
says,
so we
yeah,
cover.
right.
So what would you add in?
No, we're removing the word covered.
And just make it boat lift.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Well, I see the need to include the roof supports, because those are typically go outside the diameter of a boat lift when it's covered. So I feel like we need to include the uncovered boat lifts and the covered boat lifts somehow. in
We'll just
that.
add the word covered boat slips and uncovered.
Yes,
Is that okay?
yes. Something, yeah.
So how would that be? Any roof supports for permanent covered boat lifts or permanent covered and uncovered boat lifts?
Yeah. Is that good, or do you want the
I think.
uncovered on the next one?
I think a better would be to add at the beginning of it, a permanent type boat lift or any roof supports, and then the way you have it.
All right.
So, permanent type boat lift or, and then we've included the boat lifts without a roof, those with the roof, the supports, and covered lifts and slips. So it would say, permanent type boat lift, any roof supports for permanent covered boat lifts and covered slips must be at least 8 feet from the property line and remain 8 feet from the projected property line as it extends into the water. No part of the structure can be closer than 6 feet from the property line and must remain 6 feet from the projected property line as it extends into the water. I think by making those edits, we include both the covered and uncovered.
What about the elevated? No part of the elevated structure? Because they're talking about the top can be closer than.
Right, but I
bottom.
think if we say no part of the structure, then we're including the top and the structure itself. Does that sound fair?
Yes.
Because if we leave in the elevated part, then again, we're excluding the boat lifts that don't have covers.
So it sounds like we have the uprights
Mhm.
at 8 foot, and then it allows for like a 2 foot
Right,
eave.
yes.
Okay, is that just so nobody can go put a 4 foot eve or something, like get some
Yes.
extra real
And
estate?
historically, because it was not clarified, people would push back and say, well, this says the boat lift, it doesn't say the canopy.
Okay.
And so then they would use the measurement from the edge of the boat lift, whereas we all know that canopy also encroaches on the usable water space.
Does somebody have that written as you said it, Nina, that you can provide?
No, I can repeat it.
It'll be in the
We can
meeting
take it off
minutes.
recording.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Then, do I have a motion for the proposed new rule as said by Nina, or do we want to
I'll
wait?
set the motion.
Okay.
Unless you wanna wait.
Second.
Okay.
All in favor?
Roll it.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Then that will be on for old business B. Now we're at the end. It's open forum. I always get nervous when I say that. Anyone?
Of course. All right, Rich from JB 25259. I do like what you said about what you're gonna ask the judge, so let's get that out here.
Wow.
So we're gonna stay with one vote per lot.
Nothing, I'm not gonna ask for any changes but for the quorum number. And making sure we have a clear path, a clear definition of electronic voting, how that's gonna be done.
Okay, all right, well, we'll get that out here first tonight. But I'm trying to figure out is, a quorum was met. Judge said whatever comes in, so a quorum was met.
There was no quorum requirement for this
This
vote.
I'm saying, whatever come in, come in. Right, so quorum that. So I'm trying to figure out, the people voted no, but most of them brought it in. So that was homeowners. So we had over 1,200 votes and only 1,675 homes. So, and I see most of them just brought in. What I'm trying to figure out is how the board can overrule what the people voted for. That's what I'm just trying to figure out. You know, the board,
Okay.
seems like the board overruling, hey, they voted no, but we're still gonna continue. That's one question. And then another one is, like AJ put out here, and nobody disagreed, he said winner takes all. Now, Rick said I took it out of content, and I'm trying to figure out, how do you take, if you got two people playing poker, and they put all their money in, and said winner takes all. And then, well, wait a minute now, you know, I know you won, but, you know, you took it out of
Okay,
content.
so this wasn't necessarily a winner take all. You have to read the court's order and interpret that. So what the court allowed us to do was to do a vote on all our presented changes that we were asking for. That vote is then to be given to the judge for a final decision. That vote itself was not necessarily the decision, it was just an influencing factor for the judge.
See, it seemed like it was put out a different way. It seemed like, because nobody objected to AJ saying that. Hey,
The vote itself
You know the
is a
good-
winner
hold on.
take all.
You know the good news, we'll see when he's pointing to me and saying my name, I'll answer.
Sure.
First, I'm not a lawyer, I promise. This orange is not lawyer approved. So I was trying to bring it down to a simplification of what everyone is doing, because I remember that meeting specifically. There was a lot of questions about what this means and how this works. And then there was a lot of conflicting opinions between us and the audience.
Yes.
So I was just trying to bring it down and say, the judge said, take a vote. I will take that winner take all vote into consideration for this.
And-
Now, whether or not I spoke that correctly to the camera or your face,
And sitting next to AJ, I
Is-
recall that part of the conversation, and the conversation was centered around the fact that this vote did not require a quorum. And so he was clarifying the fact that majority, and I think someone else at the same time even said, the majority vote rules. Now, by saying rules, that means the majority took that vote. But we now have to take that vote. We can't take that vote and say, nope, we're done. We've already petitioned the court. We now have to return this vote to the court, and the court now makes their decision however they deem to make it.
Right, I'll expand on that.
But the
We don't make the choice. We're not making the choice. The judge makes the choice.
Plaintiff can, you got to the plaintiff can drop the case.
We are not the decider. We are presenting our case to the judge.
You're the plaintiff.
We've already presented our case.
I understand
We
that.
can't undo it.
The judge makes the decision. No matter what this vote came back as, we could present that to the judge and the judge could do whatever he wants based on law.
Paragraph 9, in the judge's ruling, he made that statement that he can,
Reserves the right.
he reserves the right to make the final decision.
We don't tell him what we want. Well, we tell him what we want. We don't tell him what to do.
I understand.
So we can't ever tell him what to do. So we could never tell you as the community that the result of this vote, the judge is going to do that. I could never tell you that
He
for
may reverse the
anything.
rule.
But when I say, like I said at the beginning, I like what you're gonna ask the judge, but the second time I try to say, The plaintiff, any plaintiff in any case.
He's
can
saying we
drop
could drop the
protection.
complaint, is what he's saying.
Can drop the complaint, and.
Is what he's
it seems like
asking.
you're going against, that's where I'm getting at.
Dropping the complaint would be irresponsible.
Not after, well, okay, all right.
Dropping the complaint, I hear the community.
Yeah.
The package as presented was not passed.
Right,
That was a package of different factors. It was not passed.
too many.
But I need to make a decision, we as a board need to make a decision that's fiscally responsible and also considers the future of this community. So I'm not going against what everybody said. I'm taking parts of it that we believe is the financially responsible method and also just the avenue to assure fair and equitable voting for everyone in the future. That counts. If we ignore this and just put this into the trash, I don't think it's responsible. I think I would be an irresponsible president, and each board member here would be an irresponsible board member to go along with that. We need to make a decision considering the community's input and make an appropriate decision for the community. So that's taking part of those factors and asking the judge to make a ruling to lower the quorum and make sure that electronic voting is spelled out in the covenants.
And that's it?
That is it.
Okay, all right.
I hear you, I hear you, I hear them, I hear them. And we're not asking the court to go against the vote. The vote was pretty clear
Yeah.
that as a package, the community didn't want that. But we're here to make an appropriate decision considering that, and then we're gonna present that to the judge who makes the final choice. We don't tell the judge what to do.
And the judge could still
Say no.
say no to all of it anyway.
Right.
He could walk in the thing, go, nope, and then it's done. So, from if I understand this correctly, Alyssa? Like, he just walks in and he could still look at the findings and say, and you ask your question, he could still say, nope. Like, he could do nothing.
Right,
Like,
right.
he could disapprove. of
He's the
everything.
referee, you know, he's the decision maker. We aren't. We are presenting the best case, which considers each and every community member, me, everybody sitting here.
But asking your question, to go along with Richard's
Mm-hmm.
point, by you asking for any changes of any kind, it still will not make any difference to what he is gonna decide to do. He is still gonna decide.
Well, they of course
On the
consider our case and what we want, and he'll rule with what he
Sure.
believes is fair and within the law.
Right. But I'm just saying that you can, just because we ask for it, does not mean that it changes what we have overall asked for.
Correct,
Okay.
correct,
He's an unbiased decision.
right.
Right.
But I think it makes complete sense to lower the quorum requirement and have an avenue for electronic voting in the covenants.
Chris Schubert, Mill Springs, 266. I think the electronic voting is the number one thing we gotta get accomplished.
Correct.
And the second thing is, on the covenants currently, there's a way to, the quorum requirement reduces, but it's only for 2 votes. If we could get that extended to 3 or 4 rounds.
The language in that is so unclear. So that quorum requirement and the subsequent votes, that all needs to be cleared up. It is so confusing, and when you read other sections, it doesn't say to, you know, so it could be misinterpreted. And I'm not asking, we're not gonna ask for a big change in that, just a clarification in that step-down process and a lower quorum requirement. But that is, the language is bad.
Yeah, the electronic thing's number one. The
Right,
cost
right.
of asking the question.
Is absolutely ridiculous. We're burning money.
$2,400 about every time we have a mailer.
Plus the cost of our staff.
Yeah.
A lot of time.
And mail is only gonna get more expensive.
That's for sure.
I just wanted to clarify if this vote was one in which the quorum was applicable, it'd be a no vote. There wasn't enough votes to satisfy the quorum
Well,
that's
the
in
court
place
was
today.
made by the judge. I mean,
No, I said the quorum that's currently in place, if it was an actual, something that we didn't go through the courts, if it was just posed, it wouldn't have won or lost based on its merit, it would have lost because there wasn't enough votes. We did not, and you mentioned 1,600 homes?
Yeah.
It's not homes, it's members. There's more members than that.
'Cause if you own 4 lots.
1,986 membership, and 66 and 2/3 of that comes up to 1,325.
All I'm saying is, I see most of the votes are hand delivered in, so that's probably all the homeowners. I'm trying to argue.
Yeah. Well,
You can't say that, Richard, because you didn't open the box, and neither did I during any of that 30-day period. How do you know what was carried in or mailed in?
Things could get mailed in and then placed in there. There was a lot of avenues for it to get in the box.
So there was people that mailed them in and we just took them over and put them in the box.
You open the
No.
No.
No, you saw us open the envelopes during the count.
Yes, sir. That's what I was saying.
Right.
Most of it was carried in by homeowners.
I have a comment. We have neighbors that are weekenders. They never got a ballot. And now they live in Zionsville, but they were wondering, was it mailed to here or was it mailed to Carmel?
That's
But they
whatever
never-
they have on record in the office as their mailing address.
Yeah. So the electronic vote, that should help, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Big time.
Right.
Because they wanted to vote.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Town Novak, 25 Mill Springs. Just to clarify, and AJ doesn't have to answer, but when you talk about a quorum, are you thinking of just a number or a minimum number and then a percent of that?
Just the number. Just the number.
So therefore, by saying just the number, I'll just throw out, let's say you would say 750. Let's say that's the number, 750, and you get
326. Or no?
So what do you need for a yes? If the number is 750,
What's that?
One more vote than the other.
That's fine.
one more vote
Is
than
it 50?
permitted,
60%.
is that what you're asking for?
If
So
the quorum-
it would have to be, go ahead.
If the quorum was 750 and the total number of votes cast was 748,
No, the
not a vote.
total number of votes cast was 750, let's keep the division easy.
It's 60%.
60, it's 2/3.
Right, so it would be
Per the
two,
covenants.
yes.
So
it would
it's
be-
still 2/3?
Yes.
That's what it is right now.
That's what she's
Okay.
looking to ask the judge.
Right.
So the minimum, you're looking at a number, but the percentage of that minimum number to pass is still gonna be 2/3.
I'm trying to.
2/3 of total vote, no, it's 1,367 votes. You gotta have that many.
He's,
He's
No,
talking about the
it's
yes
future.
votes.
What?
He's not talking about total votes, he's talking about the yes versus the no's.
If you don't have 1,367 total votes,
But-
you don't have an
but
election.
say we meet that.
I know
Say
what you
we
mean,
meet it,
but
yeah.
just the number, overall number, the
So that will
percentages.
still be 66% of whatever number you pick.
Correct.
If you, okay.
Yeah, 2/3, 60.
The reason for
I
that
think
is
that-
I'm not trying to change things that the community doesn't want. We're not trying to just go in here and, you know, push our muscle around. But I think changing the quorum number is the most minimal ask we can do, that will still help the community have a fair and equitable voting process. I think changing the percentages would require more say, and we don't have everybody on board.
But then you're not gonna go, because a little while ago, you were indicating, as somebody mentioned, the idea of reducing the percentage.
We need to clear up the
Another-
language on
another-
that. We need to clear up the language on that.
So
It's
you're gonna
unclear.
also go with that to the judge?
Just
clear
to
up
make
the-
sure that there's one explanation of that. The language is not clear. If you read it, there's multiple interpretations of
So
that.
you are going to change the language besides asking for a number?
I think it just needs to be clarified. So you read it right now and it's unclear. So what the understanding of that process is right now, we're just gonna clean up the language so the process stays the same. It just can't be interpreted in another manner.
So in my simple mind, you're gonna present to the judge.
What it is
a
in clear language.
clarification of language and a number.
Correct, and the electronic voting.
That's
Right, I don't wanna
that's not-
change it, the interpretation of that step down, we just need to clear up the language, because it could be, you know, like the differences between mays and shalls and things that could be interpreted in another way.
Yeah, unfortunately, I hate to agree with that gentleman, but I look at it as the public has come back and given you a no, but the board is coming back and saying, well, we think if we reduce this, it would be better.
I'm gonna
Do the people
disagree.
agree with you?
I think what you're simplifying it, right? So everybody has said no to the package as a whole,
Correct.
and we understand and hear that. I don't think that we can say the community said as a whole that a lowered quorum requirement is going against everybody's wishes. I don't think that that was ever presented as,
Standalone.
right.
But the only red flag, unless I totally don't remember what the board was asking for, the only red flag that I see a difference is that you're not going to reduce the number of votes based on lot ownership.
That we're not asking to change any of that.
That's gonna stay the same.
Correct.
So then, that's the only thing, that's the only red flag that people might have saw. Because you're going to still be asking for a number.
I think that was the big red flag.
Well, it could be.
That was the feedback.
Yeah.
The feedback-
Multi-lot owners were not excited about losing voting power versus, you know, because when they moved here with the intent of that being an issue with the people I've spoken to over the past month and a half was, well, if I own 3 or more lots, I'm losing a vote
Right,
or more.
right. All right. Well,
Thank you.
Anyone else? I think we're good. All right, motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second? All right, all in favor? Thank you.
Thank you.